Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends, and thanks for tuning in today. We've got an exciting episode today with Michael Beninati. He is in Denver metro area, and he's the owner of Windermere Metro Denver Real Estate. And we have been chatting before we started recording about his experience in the business, and it's vast. He's done everything from selling to building a team to owning a brokerage and the whole nine yards. So I don't want to butcher the introduction any further. We'll just kind of jump right in. Michael, tell us a little bit about your backstory. How did you end up in real estate, and what's your journey looked like since then?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. It's awesome stuff. And you did not butcher it, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So I spent 25 years in retail, right? So I worked for big brands like Sears and whatnot. And I got into telecommunications about 20 years ago or so. So I worked for Quest, US West Quest. I was legacy, and I built retail stores. So the little kiosks in the malls. So I was the guy that managed people, managed the employees. I also went in and signed contract leases on commercial real estate contracts, right, which was nice. And then during a period of time, during Quest's period of time when the downturn hit, I was part of a group called the Community Developer Group. And that group went out to, ironically, to HOAs, builders, developers, and homeowners for, at the time, broadband, DSL. Right. Okay. So as the Denver sprawl was happening, people were making buying decisions at that time based on the facilities in the ground. So I learned a lot about wet and dry utilities. I learned a lot about dirt, easements, those type of things. And I was the guy that got propped up in the HOA in the living room at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, right, to get signatures. And so when that group kind of went away, we brought retail back. So Quest brought retail back. We had 140 locations in 14 states. I was on the build team, right? So I was single at the time, traveling 3 weeks a month. Opened the last mall, which ironically was Flatiron Crossing up here in Broomfield, and I got laid off.
Oh, wow.
After all that, yeah. So I was pre-recession, pre all that. And if you lived in the Denver area, Quest just imploded, right, in 04, 05, and 06. So sitting in my backyard, having martinis, and I was like, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, well, I'm gonna jump into real estate, right? And I understood new construction really well, and I understood corporate relocation. So I was smart enough to know that I didn't want to just jump in, right, like every other agent. So I wanted to kind of specialize and have a niche. So jumped in right out of the gate in September of 06. And 06 was pretty good. 07 wasn't bad as I was building my business. 07, 09 was a disaster as we all lived through that. But plowed through it. And plowed through it with relationships, plowed through it with doing the right thing, trying to be a giver first, creating my network, just educating myself beyond belief, right, on all things real estate. Also during that time, I became an appraiser. And that, I think, has helped me today because really understanding valuation, understanding values, we really don't run into a lot of appraisal challenges in our company. Our listings, pretty much we go, right, which is good. And I think that that has served me well over the years. So that's kind of the backstory, right? So I jumped in with another brokerage, took all their training and classes, and then one Wednesday night, I met my business partner at a networking event through the Glendale Chamber of Commerce, of all places, at Dave & Buster's. At all places. So we met, connected, and it was just like I was looking for him, he was looking for me, and it just kind of worked out well. So at the time, we were at Coldwell Banker. So we built a team at Coldwell Banker here in town, a little over 30 agents. During that period of time, we earned the #1 spot within DMAR, the Denver Association of Realtors, for transactions in size and volume. And as you can imagine, when you get to that level over the course of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, a lot of companies reached out to us and we had a lot of conversations, a lot of dialogue, a lot of amazing brokerages all over Denver, big, large, independent, all of them were really great. And through 6 degrees of separation, we were connected to Windermere. And my business partner lives in Southern California, Palm Springs, and one of my business partners, excuse me. And there's a connection there back to Colorado, back to where I grew up on the West Coast in the Oregon area. So we just made this connection, and took about a year to go through the vetting process. And we couldn't just have a bad day. right? We had all these agents and all these families, and we were in 4 offices from Fort Collins to the DTC, right? So we had to kind of unwind that a little bit and understand, is it going to be good for us, right? It's going to be good for our agents making that move. And so we went through the process and made a transition I think was really smooth. Out of our 30 agents, 26 of them followed us, which I thought was great. We opened an office over here in Glendale and launched on July 15th of 2016, and the rest is somewhat in history.
So let's back up a minute here. So one of the things you mentioned was that you bumped into and met your business partner at a networking event at the Investors.
I did, yeah.
So what year was that?
So that would have been in 13, roughly 13, yep.
And so when you say I was looking for him and he was looking for me, what was going on in your business up to that point? I know you alluded to the struggles that the 2008, 2009 brought, which we can all attest to if you were in the business back then. So what did life look like for you in 2013? And when you say you were looking for a partnership, what was the motivator there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think this happens to a lot of us, right? We hit a level of solo agent, right? And there's only so much real estate you're going to be able to handle, right? And at some point, realtors bring on a transaction coordinator. Sometimes they bring on an assistant. Sometimes they focus on buyers. Sometimes they focus on listings. That there's only so much revenue that you're going to hit in the market. So in order to scale, what I was looking for was a way to be a leader, right, and be a good steward to others. Because my background was really in corporate America, and it was in executive leadership. So how could I take that business, right, and not only leverage my network, but also bring others up, behind me, right? And part of that was looking for the right environment to create a successful team, right? And so at the time, one of my partners, John, and then Carl had just started this team, right? And were feeling their way through the system and the process. And the whole dynamic was about teaching people to fish, right? And teaching people about relationships and not just about the transaction. And so that really resonated with me, but also at the time was allowing me to then grow, to bring on some buyer's agents, right? Bring on a transaction coordinator, do all the things that I wanted to do, right? Without at the time having to go do that on my own, right? So doing it together, right, versus trying to be just another broker out there with another team, right? So I recognized certain deficiencies, whether it was operation-wise, whether it was marketing, and those things too. And so when John and I met, it was really like kind of 2 peas in the pod, right? It's kind of a yin and a yang, right? And it was a way to be able to scale our business, right? Not only the people that he knew and a team that he was building, but a team that I was trying to attract out there in the marketplace too.
And now he's in Southern California. Is that since you opened you made the move to Windermere? He moved out of state?
Yeah. So we've got 4 owners of this franchise. So 2 of us are here and 2 of us are in California. So John and I are primarily here. We have Vincent Grandy, who's also an owner with us as well. Vincent owns a second home in Southern California. He's back and forth every month and is working the Southern California market and the Denver market.
Wow.
And Carl, our business partner, moved a year ago, May 1st. So they are gone, sold their house here, and they are all in Southern California. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about what that looks like, because I know a lot of folks listening, hearing someone say they go back and forth to 2 different markets and work those markets, it can sound like a really daunting thing to do. So what kind of support and systems are in place to allow someone to be in a different physical location and still be succeeding in real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we got the secret sauce on that. So we've got, it's all about having good support behind the scenes, right? So it's having an amazing office staff, transaction coordinators, the marketing piece, but also branding, right? So agents do have that ability to really do that, especially if you're into that lifestyle of 2 different markets. So a great example of that, and I'll use, we call it Denver to the desert. What we found is there are scores of people in Denver that have second homes down there in Southern California, including realtors. Right? So what a great way to leverage your real estate license, right? In a lot of ways. So we have a sales cycle in Colorado, and it is predictable, right? Well, they have a sales cycle down there too, right? And so how do you leverage both of those markets, right? So you can maybe go down. So we have agents that were talking to that will spend the summers here. So they'll spend 6 months building their business, doing their real estate in Colorado, and they'll spend 6 months down in Southern California enjoying the better weather and working that market, right? That second home market, which is very different than the Denver market. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is continuing to market themselves in blogging and also being a resource, right? So even though you live in Denver, we have agents that are very successful in connecting people in Southern California, and you can take a referral in that business. You don't have to physically be there. So part of it's about creating an environment of a win-win versus having to take every dollar out of the business, right? So we think that's important from a lifestyle perspective, right? So another thing that we have found is that with our brand, with Windermere is based in Seattle. So you have a lot of Seattle, Portland, and Idaho and Salt Lake City agents just because of the weather dynamic that have licenses in other states, up to and including Florida, Arizona, Mexico, Hawaii, and they're doing dual market, right, business. It's a whole different way to do real estate versus being focused on one area and one neighborhood, right? It's going a little bit more global, and it's sharing what's happening in multiple markets at multiple times.
I love that. So one question I have for you, we interviewed a gal on the podcast not too long ago who was doing something really fascinating, and much like what you're saying here is that, you know, you can make real estate global, which I think is a really unique perspective to have, because I think a lot of people, once they become successful in real estate, there's almost a sense of being trapped by the location that they're in, and this idea that it's impossible to remove myself from this market and still succeed and all that. So I love the innovation and like just the forward thinking around the idea of making your business be feasible to do in multiple markets. Anyways, this Marguerite Martin gal, she's actually on a sabbatical right now because she's referring out all of her business and has managed to become such a lead magnet that she's able to have a sustainable income in doing so. Do you find that there's some level of managing this that has to do with just being okay referring those clients out? Like if you want to go spend 6 months in Southern California during the winter months in Colorado, you just have to be okay knowing that there's amazing agents out there that would love to take on those clients for you. Is that pretty heavy inside of Windermere? Is these referrals going around?
We do, absolutely. So when and this whole project for us started about 15 years ago. It was more of a dream, right? And so it's been a lot of development too. So in our example, so Carl McNew, one of our owners, he made a conscious decision at the time to stop selling real estate. I'm not opening another MLS. I'm not opening another file. It's all going to get referred. And my time is going to be spent on recruiting and then be able to have the lifestyle that I want to have, right? So you have to make a conscious decision at some point, right, to do that. And then have people teed up that can help you with that business, right? That's number one. Number two is, you made an interesting point, is that we work so hard, right? And we try to generate that revenue and build this amazing business and our reputation. And then all of a sudden, what happens?
You sacrifice everything for it.
We do. But what happens at a certain time when you want to retire, right? And you don't want to be in Colorado anymore. Maybe your life is in Costa Rica, right? Maybe your life is in Southern California, right? Or the mountains or whatever. If we're not feeding that machine and you don't have people to help you, you'll never be able to step away from it. So you have to create a sustainable business, number one. But number two is a business that can run without you. And the other piece of it is partner with people that can help run that business that have the same core beliefs that you have, right? And one way to do that we learned was you got to take your name off of it. Right? Your last name group, right? You got to take that name off of it and have some sort of saleable asset, right, down the road. And that's how we build a retirement plan, right? So I think with that being said, I think a lot of agents get very proud of their name and very proud of their little group and whatnot, right, too. But it makes it, I think, a detriment in the long run to be able to make a transition. Number three, what we found is some of our more senior agents in our company, we're teaming them with a junior agent or a brand new agent. Right? And part of that is to do a knowledge transfer. The other side of it is so that agent can then start to work themselves into retirement. And what does that look like from a referral standpoint of what you just said? And we know many, many people here in Colorado and out of state that have not touched a real estate transaction in 5 years and they make 6 figures a year. Referrals just coming in. You have to just you're right, you got to just let it go, right? And let somebody help you run your business, right? But help them develop the core skills and that knowledge transfer as well.
Well, let's talk about that development piece, because you and I were chatting a little bit earlier about this. And I know you had some time at Keller Williams. Are you a fan of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, they talk about recruit, train, consult, and then retain or something along those lines. And I know that, that consult piece is super important because a lot of times we forget how much information is living in our brain and has become scripts or has become a habit over the years. And so we sometimes, I think, as team leaders or business owners, we get them trained and then we sort of like let them go. And there's a consulting piece that I think is critical to that continual development, both personally and professionally. What does that look like for you guys? How structured are you in the way that you deliver that follow-up consulting and training for your agents?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we've done is we've created a couple of different models, right? So we believe, and I believe this too, we want to create an environment in our company for an agent to succeed. And success can be measured in so many different ways, right, for individuals. So we have some agents that absolutely come to an office every day. We've got agents that are wildly successful that I probably see once a quarter. Right? They do their thing, they work remote, whatever they need to do. Then we've got agents that are kind of in the middle that need a little bit of that hand holding, but they also are more independent. So we've created a few things, right? So we have an onboarding process. It's a 60-day onboarding process. And that looks a little different if you're brand new at a real estate school versus if you're 3 years in the job or you're 14 years in the industry, right? It looks a little different, but we think a 60-day window really helps people launch for whatever his or her needs are. Right. The other side of it is we have a weekly huddle that I lead on Tuesday mornings. And it's more of a roundtable, right? And let's talk about our wins and challenges and intents, but also what are those things we're struggling with today? They're very different today than they were a year ago, right? As I'm sure you're feeling in the business too. And then we do an annual business plan in October every year with every agent. And then I sit down with them one-on-one and we talk about their personal goals and their business goals for the next 12 months, right? And we start to put numbers around it. We start to put goals around those. And then that's what I coach and lead to throughout the course of the year, right? So an agent who's 5 years in the business, right? His or her goals may be very different than somebody who's 20 years in the business, right? And so what their needs are and what drives them are very different versus making it very cookie cutter, if you will. That's what we do on a local level. Now, Windermere globally has an amazing education program and professional development. So what we'd like to see in a big picture vision is a person comes in as an agent, number one. Number two, maybe they create their own team or partnership. Then if they want to go into a managing broker type role, we'd love to train them to do that. And then if they would like to purchase a Windermere franchise directly from Windermere, we'd love to be part of that conversation with them. So we're almost kind of training a little bit of our people, but also training our competition, but creating great realtors out there and great agents out there with huge, great teams. I think it's really important.
Well, I've heard from some of the agents on your team just how amazing you are as a mentor and a leader. So I commend you there because I think it's a learning process as you transition from I'm a solo agent, whatever that might look like, whether you're a lender like me or a real estate agent, to being a leader, being a mentor, having systems means a lot. So you mentioned that you are still handling some clients and you also bounce back and forth to your vacation home. So talk to me a little bit about what that looks like from a technical standpoint, because I think a lot of people have big dreams to be someday owning a business that could run without them while they're in a different physical location. And the biggest fear I hear is that like the work it takes to get from I'm a great real estate agent, I'm a great technician to I'm a great business owner with a scalable business. Like, how did you navigate that? Did you see ups and downs financially to allow yourself the time it took to build it out? Or
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like I would even argue that even in a corporation, if somebody had a JOB, and when you go into management or executive leadership, that's not where the money's at, right? The money is in sales, right? And the money is actually being an agent and running his or her real estate business. But at some point, we hit burnout. At some point, we run out of clients. At some point, right, the market does change, right, up or down, either way. And at some point, we have to have those things in our life that are important from a lifestyle by design. So what I did was we created an environment in another state, right, which gives us the ability to have a full work from home environment. So we've got printers and scanners and a dedicated space and a whole office space remote that we operate just as if we're sitting right here in Denver. That's number one. Number two is my agents know my schedule really well, and we break out our day, right? So we try to, because we're in another time zone, so for me it's a little bit easier. So we say for the morning in our time zone, we are 100% working. That's my wife and I. We're working. We grind it out, and then we take a half day or 3/4 of a day and do what we need to do. But we're working every day and touching our business. The other thing that we do is we're learning about that market too. Right? We're learning about that real estate market, that lending market, right? That second home market to educate ourselves to be able to create a referral business there as well. And that does take a little bit of time. The other piece of it is that being able to set expectations with clients. So when we're on the listing side of a transaction, it's not as difficult, right? When you're on the buy side of a transaction, it's definitely more difficult because you're not physically here. So if I know what's coming down the pike and I'm looking ahead 30, 60, 90 days, I'm already bringing in maybe another agent in the conversation or my business partner. Right. So if I know closing's coming up, or if I know that somebody's going to be traveling over Memorial Day or 4th of July from a relocation standpoint, I will make that connection very early on. So that way so we're both kind of working it together, if you will, versus trying to handle it all. And well, now I'm going to go away. And now you got to work with this person. It's just awkward. Right. So it's about setting expectations, and people get it. They get it at all levels. And I think people are curious about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and having that sustainable business. From a personal standpoint of personal production, you are absolutely right. Your personal production does go down as you start to lead and mentor and coach, because you're spending time giving to others, right? With the hope that they're going to drive their business to be able to give back on the back end. So there's a period of time where income does go down, as well as your time gets stretched a little bit, but over the big picture time, that goes away.
Sure. Well, let me ask you another question I think that people often wonder about, which is, in the beginning, like you mentioned, you work it, grind it out, you get to a point that your business is successful, and then you have a whole different level of stress, which is overwhelm and burnout. And then you make a decision. I'm going to create a different business model for me, for my exit strategy, or whatever that might look like. And I'm going to put in all the legwork there. So the question I hear a lot is that people think that when you've got people to manage, you've got a growing organization, you've got office locations in different states. Do you find that you are able to actually shut off more frequently now? I mean, really, like, do you take some downtime, or do you find that you're still all the time as much as you were as a real estate agent, just in a different capacity, as now instead of responding to clients 24/7, I'm responding to my agents? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So there's definitely right now with our brokerage, we're hitting 3 years coming up here in about 2 months. There really isn't any downtime. That would be true. I mean, we're touching, and all of us are touching the business in different ways. So what we did was we realized right away that we had to create swim lanes, right? So my business partners and I have our 10 or 12 items, whatever those items are, that's what we deal with, right? So I don't have to be involved in all 4 buckets, if you will, on a daily basis, which makes it nice too. Plus the agents get it. The agents know which one of us, right? So for example, in this example, John's our CFO. So if it's commissions or finance, or they want help with taxes, or they need help with that type of stuff, LLC type work, they can go to John on that, right? If it's the sales and the networking and the contracts and the realtor to realtor communications and offers, they work with me on that, right? And then their business plan and business development. So with that being said, it's working at a different level, right? And it is 7 days a week, but it's a different level versus having to necessarily be feeding that machine from a buyer or seller perspective.
But I think it's really powerful to be transparent about that, because I think that so many of us, when we do go through periods of overwhelm, and I think that we get to a point that we want to scale our business a little bit, and we, at least in my case, I made the mistake of getting things set up and then trying to check out a little bit, and it definitely affected things. And I do enjoy the mentoring, the training, the leading, and like making sure that there's buy-in to the vision of how we treat people and how we do our loans and the whole 9 yards, right? And so I think that it's not necessarily like, oh, sweet, I've got some team members, I'm going to retire. It's more that I'm working all the time, but I'm working in a different capacity. And it's one that I feel really like I enjoy, because you're imparting all that wisdom to others to help them succeed.
Right. Well, the question sometimes too, and I've heard this from other business owners, I'm part of a group of other business owners here in town, and it's about, are you working on your business or in your business, right? And we have these great analogies out there about being the nurse or the doctor, right? You got to kind of figure out where you're going to play, right? And what are you going to do? And I think on some days you're doing both. Some days you don't have to do both. But it's also about finding the right people, right? That can help you, that are also coachable, right?
Sure.
People that want to go to the next level, people that have that drive, that fire in the belly. And not everybody has it, right? Not everybody can be the quarterback, right? And we teach our agents a couple things when they're on a listing appointment or they're with a buyer's appointment. We're all using the same MLS. We're all using HD photography. We all have signs. We all have social media. We all have all these things, right? So what makes you really different? Right? And so how do you make that different from the relationship standpoint, but also the need standpoint, and then also doing a great job? Because I've always said, no one needs us to go drive around and find their new neighborhood, right? No one needs us to put a sign in their yard to sell their house, right? And but they need us contract to close, right? They need all of our partners like yourself. They need our education, our knowledge, right? Our inspectors, our appraisers. And what does that look like to help navigate the residential side of our business, which is very emotional, right? All price points, it's emotional, right? Yeah. Versus the commercial side of our business just isn't, right? It just is not. It's very much a dollars and cents conversation, and it's your quick decisions and in, out, and boom, and go. So it's just very different in that market. But the residential side is very emotional.
Yeah, I love that. So what are your goals as a group? I mean, how many agents would you like to see to feel like you've reached maturity in the growth of your own business and your own team?
Yeah, so we've got a couple stepping stones. We would love to hit that. Right now, between Colorado and California, we are a group or a company of 50 people. That includes agents, staff, and support. We'd like to probably see somewhere around 100 to 150 total between both states, probably heavier here in Colorado, probably closer to maybe 75 to 100 here. We're obviously a larger market. We really want to be intimate with our people. We want to know what's going on with all their transactions, but I want to know what's going on in their lives. I want to know our agents that have kids, what's going on with them, people who are, their spouses, all that type of stuff. I think for us, it's incredibly important because that's why they're in our business and that's why they work. That's why they're generating revenue, right? But I also want to see them thrive. I want them to have the lifestyle they want, right? And build that lifestyle to a point where they could have a saleable asset in the future and they could have an amazing life being in real estate.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned lifestyle design earlier, which is honestly what this podcast is all about, is just the idea that you can have it all. And it's a journey, and you got to be having fun along the way, because it's like finding success isn't necessarily the destination. It's just how do you enjoy the process, enjoy your life while you're building a successful business and have it all, really. So I love everything you're doing, and I'm really excited to follow along with your journey. If folks want to get in touch with you because they're either curious about joining your team or masterminding with you or anything, what's the best way to reach you?
I'm a phone guy, so pick up the phone and call me. So area code 303-627-7667. Otherwise, our website is windermeremetrodenver.com, and so they can reach out to me there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show. It's been great getting to know you. And I appreciate everyone for tuning in today. If you have any questions about our guests or have questions about anything at all, you can always reach out to us as well. And as always, if you like this content, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or YouTube so we can continue to attract great guests like Michael and keep sharing this awesome content. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.